Is Jungkook about to become the face of a nation? Why BTS's album ARIRANG is being read as Korea's boldest cultural signal yet? What if an album title could carry the weight of a nation's memory, its sorrow, its pride, and its future all at once? And what if one man's voice was chosen, silently and symbolically, to carry it to the world? When BTS announced that their fifth full album would be titled ARIRANG, the reaction was immediate, visceral, and emotionally charged. Fans did not simply hear the name of a record, they heard history calling. They saw a question forming in the air, unspoken but impossible to ignore. Is Jungkook about to step into a role no Korean pop artist has ever officially held before, becoming the new national face of Korea in sound and image? From the moment the title surfaced, speculation ignited across fan communities, cultural commentary circles, and even mainstream media. ARIRANG is not just a word. It is Korea's most iconic folk song, a melody that has traveled through centuries of hardship, separation, resilience, and survival. It is sung differently in every region, adapted by every generation, and recognized globally as a symbol of Korean identity. To place that name on a BTS album released after military service, staged at Gwanghwamun Square, the political and historical heart of Seoul felt anything but accidental. And within that symbolism, one name kept rising to the surface: Jungkook. Why Jungkook? Why now? And why do fans believe that when ARIRANG is finally performed under the open sky of Gwanghwamun on March 21, it will be his voice, his presence, and his image that define the moment the world remembers? The anticipation did not grow in a vacuum. On the 4th of February 2026, Seoul Mayor Oh Se-hoon stood before cameras during a press conference broadcast nationwide and spoke words that immediately went viral. He described the return of BTS as something the entire nation was waiting for, calling it the approach of a king's return and emphasizing the magnitude of holding their comeback event at Gwanghwamun Square. His language was ceremonial, almost reverent, and it reframed a pop concert as a cultural event of national significance. In that moment, the comeback was no longer just about music. It was about Korea presenting itself to the world again through its most powerful cultural ambassadors. The mayor's statement was echoed and expanded through multiple Korean outlets, which confirmed that BTS would release ARIRANG on March 20, followed by a massive open-air concert the next evening. Tens of thousands of fans from around the world are expected to gather, prompting the Seoul metropolitan government to roll out comprehensive crowd management, safety, and tourism plans. Ferry events on the Han River, price monitoring in tourist zones, and security zoning around Gwanghwamun all point to one conclusion: this is being treated less like a concert and more like a national festival. And festivals historically need a central figure. Within BTS, Jungkook has long occupied a unique position. He debuted as the youngest member, grew up under the public eye, and evolved into a performer whose appeal crosses age, language, and cultural boundaries. International media has repeatedly described him as the embodiment of both Korean discipline and global pop fluidity. His voice is versatile enough to handle traditional melody and modern production. His image balances approachability with iconic presence. To fans, this makes him the perfect bridge between ARIRANG as ancestral memory and ARIRANG as a modern global statement. The symbolism becomes even sharper when fans revisit the historical role of ARIRANG itself. The song has been sung during protests, during farewells, during moments of national grief and quiet hope. It has no single definitive version, which allows each generation to reinterpret it. In that sense, BTS naming their album ARIRANG is not an act of preservation alone, but of reinterpretation. It is a declaration that Korea's story is still being written, still being sung, and still being shared. So, where does Jungkook fit into that reinterpretation? Fans point to patterns. They note how he has often been placed at the center of global-facing moments, how his solo performances attract both domestic pride and international fascination. They analyze visual teasers, stage formations from past concerts, and even lyrical themes from his previous work. To them, the clues feel deliberate, almost like breadcrumbs leading toward a reveal that will only fully make sense when the lights go up at Gwanghwamun. Speculation has intensified around one particular idea, that Jungkook will perform the most iconic rendition of ARIRANG during the concert, either as an opening, a closing, or a climactic centerpiece. The idea alone has sent shockwaves through fan spaces. The thought of a modern pop artist, backed by BTS's full musical force, singing ARIRANG at Korea's most symbolically charged public square, is enough to move even casual observers. Add Jungkook's voice to that image, and it becomes something else entirely, a moment poised to be etched into national memory. This is not to say that BTS is being reduced to a single member. On the contrary, fans are careful to frame this theory as a collective narrative with a focal point, rather than a replacement of group identity. RM's leadership, Jin's symbolism of return, Suga's musical depth, J-Hope's performance energy, Jimin's emotional expressiveness, and V's artistic mystique all contribute to the tapestry of ARIRANG. Yet, even within a tapestry, there is often a central motif, a visual anchor that draws the eye before revealing the full picture. International media has already begun to sense the weight of what is coming. Outlets like Teen Vogue have framed BTS's return as more than a comeback, highlighting their role in shaping how Korean culture is perceived globally. Korean newspapers have emphasized the economic and diplomatic ripple effects, describing the event as a booster not only for tourism, but for Korea's soft power. In this context, Jungkook's rumored positioning takes on a broader meaning. It becomes less about individual fame and more about representation. Is it possible that Korea, consciously or unconsciously, is allowing Jungkook to become a new kind of national symbol? Not in the rigid, ceremonial sense of the past, but in a fluid, globalized form that speaks to younger generations worldwide? Fans argue that this is precisely what makes the idea so compelling. Jungkook is not distant or untouchable. He feels human, relatable, and emotionally transparent. That relatability, paired with global recognition, could make him an ideal vessel for carrying a song like ARIRANG into a new era. The location matters too. Gwangwamun Square is not just a large venue, it is a site of political demonstrations, historical ceremonies, and collective gatherings that have shaped modern Korea. Performing ARIRANG there, as a reunited BTS after years of military service, transforms the concert into a symbolic homecoming. Fans believe that placing Jungkook at the visual or musical center of that moment would send a message that Korea's future-facing identity is confident, youthful, and unafraid to blend tradition with innovation. As March approaches, the silence from official channels only fuels the intrigue. No confirmation has been given about specific performances, arrangements, or solo moments. Yet, in the absence of answers, the questions grow louder. Why choose ARIRANG now? Why stage the comeback at Gwangwamun? Why does Jungkook's name keep appearing in every speculative thread, every emotional prediction, every imagined setlist? Perhaps the most powerful aspect of this unfolding narrative is that it does not rely on shock value alone. It taps into collective emotion. For Korean fans, it represents pride and continuity. For international fans, it offers a deeper connection to Korean culture beyond polished pop aesthetics. For the city of Seoul, it is an opportunity to present itself as a living cultural capital where history and modernity coexist. Mayor Oh Se-hoon's words continue to echo in this context. When he spoke of the nation waiting, of a king's return, and of gratitude for the opportunity to host BTS at the heart of the capital, he framed the event as something almost ceremonial. In doing so, he unintentionally reinforced the idea that ARIRANG is not just an album but a statement, and statements, by nature, seek a voice. Whether Jungkook ultimately becomes the defining face of this era, or shares the spotlight equally, in a way that defies all predictions, one thing is already clear. The album ARIRANG has succeeded in reigniting a conversation about what Korean identity looks like on a global stage in 2026. It has blurred the line between pop culture and national symbolism, between fandom theory and cultural analysis. As fans count down to March 21, the questions remain suspended in the air, unanswered but irresistible. Will Jungkook step forward as the voice that carries ARIRANG into the night at Gwangwamun? Will the world witness a moment that future generations will replay and reference as a turning point in cultural history? And when the first notes echo across the square, will we realize that we were not just watching a comeback, but the quiet unveiling of a new national image? The answers are coming, and when they do, they may arrive not as an announcement, but as a song. And yet, even as the countdown accelerates and the city of Seoul prepares itself logistically and emotionally, another layer of tension continues to build beneath the surface, one that fans sense but officials will not name outright. What happens when pop music stops behaving like entertainment and starts acting like national memory in real time? What happens when a concert becomes a mirror, reflecting not just fandom passion but a country's desire to be seen, understood, and remembered on its own terms. This is where the album title ARIRANG stops being poetic and starts feeling almost confrontational. For decades, Korea has exported technology, cinema, cuisine, and television, but music, particularly K-pop, has often been framed by outsiders as glossy, manufactured, and disconnected from tradition. BTS disrupted that narrative years ago, weaving personal struggle, social pressure, and identity into global pop language. Now, with ARIRANG, they appear to be doing something far riskier. They are reclaiming the oldest melody Korea has and placing it inside the most globalized music machine the country has ever produced. Fans have noticed how rarely BTS uses symbolism this heavy without intention. Album titles, tour locations, release dates, nothing exists in isolation. When ARIRANG is paired with a release date of March 20 and a Gwangwon performance on March 21, the sequence itself feels scripted, almost ceremonial. The album arrives first, quietly, like a memory. The performance follows publicly, like a declaration. And in declarations, the messenger matters as much as the message. Jungkook's name continues to surface, not because he is louder than the others, but because his trajectory mirrors the story ARIRANG tells. He entered BTS as a teenager, shaped by training, discipline, and sacrifice, much like the generations who carried ARIRANG through hardship. Over time, his voice matured, his presence deepened, and his global appeal expanded without erasing his Korean identity. To fans, that balance feels almost symbolic. He is modern without being detached, global without being diluted. International reactions have added fuel to the theory. Western media outlets have increasingly framed Jungkook as a cultural bridge, someone whose image translates effortlessly across borders. His solo stages, his vocal performances, and even his quiet moments off stage have been dissected as examples of why he resonates so widely. In the context of ARIRANG, that resonance takes on a different tone. It stops being about popularity and starts sounding like responsibility. Could Jungkook be carrying more than just a melody on that stage? Could he be carrying expectation? The Seoul Metropolitan Government's involvement has only heightened this sense of scale. Crowd zoning, safety personnel, price monitoring, tourism coordination, and even themed army events on the Han River all signal that this is not being treated as a routine cultural event. Officials have repeatedly emphasized safety, harmony with daily life, and Seoul's image as a global city. These are not words usually attached to idol concerts. They are words used for international summits, national celebrations, and moments meant to be broadcast far beyond their physical location. This is why fans keep returning to one haunting question. If ARIRANG is the story, who is the storyteller? BTS, as a group, clearly represents unity, return, and completion after years of separation due to military service. RM's intellectual framing, Jin's symbolic homecoming, Suga's production legacy, J-Hope's kinetic energy, Jimin's emotional expressiveness, V's artistic depth, and Jungkook's universal appeal together form a complete narrative. But narratives often crystallize around a single image, a single voice that lingers after the moment ends. Speculation suggests that Jungkook's role may not be announced, but revealed. Perhaps it will begin with silence at Gwangwon, followed by a familiar melody reimagined. Perhaps the camera will linger just long enough to let the message sink in without explanation. Perhaps the shock will come not from spectacle, but from restraint. This is what fans find most unsettling and thrilling at the same time. BTS does not need to prove anything anymore. Their records, awards, and influence are already cemented. Which raises the question, if this comeback is not about validation, then what is it about? Many believe the answer lies in legacy. ARIRANG as a folk song has survived because it adapts. Each era sings it differently, infusing it with contemporary emotion while preserving its core. By naming their album ARIRANG, BTS places themselves within that lineage, not above it. They position their work as a continuation rather than a replacement. And within that continuation, Jungkook's rumored centrality feels less like favoritism and more like narrative logic. The emotional temperature among fans reflects this interpretation. Online discussions are filled with anticipation, anxiety, pride, and a strange sense of protectiveness. There is excitement at the possibility of witnessing history, but also fear of misunderstanding, of backlash, of the weight becoming too heavy for one person to carry. These conflicting emotions mirror the dual nature of ARIRANG itself, a song that is both beautiful and mournful, hopeful and heavy. As the world looks towards Seoul in late March, attention will not only be on the stage, but on the symbolism unfolding with each decision BTS makes. What visuals will accompany the album? How will tradition and modernity be balanced? Will the performance lean toward grandeur or intimacy? And when Jungkook steps into the spotlight, whether briefly or decisively, will the world recognize what Korean fans believe they are seeing? The idea of a national face is complex and often controversial, especially in a globalized era. No single